Hello, everyone, and welcome. Good afternoon. Before we begin, I just want to provide a disclosure. Erin Gunnelson and myself are both employees of NCS Pearson, who is the sponsor for today's webinar. There are no relevant non-financial relationships to disclose. So thank you, first of all, for attending today's webinar. I can't tell you how excited I am about being here today to talk to you about the DOS-2. The DOS-2 was one of my favorite assessment instruments as a bilingual school psychologist, and it was definitely my go-to measure when I was working with pre-K students and young children who came from Spanish-speaking and bilingual homes. I hope that you'll see why soon. So let's go ahead and get started with a product overview of the DOS-2. So I'm going to wave hello, and I'm going to turn off my camera here to make sure that I have appropriate bandwidth. And then I'll say hello again to you at the end. Okay, we want to start today by honoring Dr. Colin Elliott. Dr. Elliott was originally from England. He's the author of the DOS-2, and the British Ability Scales, the BAS and the BAS-2. He was an adjunct professor at the University of California in Santa Barbara. Dr. Elliott's contributions to the field are invaluable. The DOS-2 normative update is dedicated to him for his genuine concern with children's struggles to learn and to thrive. He's definitely earned the respect and love of many of us. Okay, so let's start and let's begin with a historical overview of the DOS-2. The original differential ability scales was published in 1990. The DOS-2 was then published in 2007. The DOS Early Years Supplement was published in 2012, and the new DOS-2 normative update will publish this May 2023. Now, one of the advantages of this measure is that it can be administered efficiently. What I mean by this is that the average testing time for the Early Years course subtest for children ages 2-6 to 3-5 is 20 minutes. And it's only 31 minutes for children ages 3 years, 6 months to 6 years, 11 months. Now, the average testing time for school-age children on the course subtest is 39 minutes. On average, the school readiness subtests are administered in 17 minutes, the working memory subtest in 12 minutes, and the processing speed subtest in 9 minutes. Now, examiners should make every effort to administer the core battery subtest in one session. Please note that this test is a qualification level C. Due to the complexities of test administration and interpretation, examiners who use the DOS-2 should have formal training in the individual administration and interpretation of cognitive instruments for children and adolescents. They should also have experience and training in testing children whose ages, linguistic background, clinical, cultural, or educational histories are similar to that of the children that they're going to be evaluating. Additionally, examiners should have training in the fundamental principles of assessment, such as establishing and maintaining rapport, eliciting optimum performance, following standard administration procedures, probing responses, and of course, maintaining test security. Now, one of the many advantages of the DOS-2 is that many of the subtests can be administered out of level if it is decided that their content and difficulty are appropriate for the individual child. With these procedures, items and subtests can be selected that will give the most accurate estimate of ability for a specific child. The relative importance of purely verbal tests has been reduced in the DOS-2 in comparison with other batteries. Its usefulness for children with limited verbal abilities or whose first language is not English is therefore enhanced. The DOS-2 provides translations for standard administration directions to accommodate for children who speak Spanish or use American Sign Language, then rather speak English to communicate. As always, any departure from standardized administration procedures should be noted and described on the record form and considered when you're interpreting results. Now, Appendix B contains the Spanish language subtest instructions needed to administer the subtests that do not require a verbal response from the child. These translated instructions pertain to the following subtests: matrices, pattern construction, recall of designs, and sequential and quantitative reasoning. Now, for the diagnostic subtests, those include matching letter-like forms, recognition of pictures, and speed of information processing. In the appendix, the English as well as the corresponding Spanish language instructions are paired together, so the examiner can easily switch back and forth as needed. Now, Dr. Elliott's vision was to produce a cognitive assessment that has exactly the same features and efficiency that professionals need, but it's also appealing, engaging, and encouraging to children. The battery has excellent floors and ceilings, so the measure is particularly useful in the assessment of ID and gifted. The DOS-2 is also a particularly useful test with students on the spectrum, and several organizations support its use with this population. Of course, when you're selecting instruments or deciding which subtest to administer, as well as planning accommodations for children who are deaf and hard of hearing, the child's primary language or preferred mode of communication should be considered the most critical issue, as opposed to the degree of hearing ability or inability. We estimate that approximately 1% of children receiving special education services in U.S. public schools have a hearing impairment, and that is from the National Center of Education Statistics 2022. Now, as mentioned previously, Dr. Elliott's vision was to develop a cognitive assessment that includes features and efficiency that professionals need. It was created from a development and an educational perspective, and it is not a downward extension of an adult battery. The DOS-2 was designed primarily to yield reliable, focused, and interpretable scores for a wide range of abilities, either by subtest or clusters. One of the distinguishing features of the DOS-2 and the normative update is that the subtest and cluster scores have sufficient reliability and a high degree of specificity in measuring distinct cognitive functions to make them individually interpretable and to make differences between them meaningful. The result is that examiners can identify children's cognitive strengths and weaknesses across a wide range of ability domains which are relevant to children's learning and development. Although its structure is primarily hierarchical, the development of the DOS-2 was not driven by any single theory of human ability. Instead, it was built on a collection of subtests that sample a range of abilities that are thought to be useful in assessing children, particularly those children with learning difficulties. The selection of abilities sampled was influenced by a variety of theoretical points of view. Now, the inclusion of subtests on the DOS-2 that measure working memory, rapid naming, and phonological processing was primarily based on an evaluation of the importance of these factors from research. It keeps visual and auditory memory tasks as distinct measures. Working memory was added to capture deficits that obviously underlie poor academic performance across a number of domains, including, of course, reading. Now, phonological processing and rapid naming were added to tap those cognitive processes involved in the acquisition of single word reading. Now, the DOS-2 can be utilized for the following reasons: to assess cognitive abilities, to assess cognitive strengths and weaknesses, in evaluations where giftedness, ID, or learning disabilities are being considered or ruled out, to inform treatment planning and placement, to evaluate Spanish-speaking children who are not proficient in English, to evaluate children who have hearing impairments for research purposes, and obviously to assess those processing weaknesses related to dyslexia. Now, the majority of the subtests employ an item set approach. The only exceptions are the recall of digits forward and backward and the recall of sequential order subtests, which utilize a traditional system of basals and ceilings. Now, suggested start points for each age are designated on the record form. So if you suspect that a child is going to have difficulty with those initial items at the suggested start point for the child's age, an earlier start point can be used. Now, for a child of higher ability, you may also select a start point normally recommended for older children. Now, this is a unique feature of this measure. Now, the goal of the DOS-2 is to measure a wide range of distinct cognitive abilities. The General Conceptual Ability, or GCA score, is a focus measure derived from only 6 subtests that are the best measures of complex conceptual abilities. Obviously, we know that individuals vary widely in their strengths and weaknesses, and the purpose of the DOS is to help and identify these strengths and weaknesses. The measure covers ability and processes, including all of the ones listed here. Now, the DOS-2 has 20 subtests across 2 batteries, the early years and the school age batteries. Core subtests are those that are used to estimate a child's general conceptual ability, or GCA score, and the clusters that contribute to this GCA score. Now, for children ages 3-6 to 17-11, there are 6 core subtests. For children ages 2-6 to 3-5, there are 4 subtests. These core subtests are administered in prescribed sequence before the diagnostic subtests. Now, there are also 3 cluster scores: verbal, nonverbal, and spatial. Now, the diagnostic subtests are those that do not contribute to the GCA and its underlying clusters. These are subtests that measure aspects of memory, they measure processing speed, and foundational abilities for early school learning. Note that these diagnostic subtest scores cannot be substituted for any core subtest score. Please refer to Table 2.2 in the administration manual for acceptable substitutions. The special nonverbal composite of the DOS can be derived for all children. It's devised for those situations in which a child is being assessed for whom subtests with verbal content or those requiring oral responses may not be appropriate. So what I'm saying here is that this would be appropriate for children who are not fluent in English, for those who are deaf and hard of hearing, and for those who have speech and language impairments. The SNC, or special nonverbal composite, is calculated from the core subtest with 2 exceptions, and those would be the 2 verbal subtests that are excluded. Now, also please note that the phonological processing subtest has a narrow age range, and that is from 7-0 to 12-11. Now, the DOS utilizes T-scores, and these are provided for subtests. Now, these represent a child's performance relative to same-age peers. T-scores are provided for all 20 subtests. They have a mean of 50 and a standard deviation of 10. Standard scores are provided for cluster scores and composite scores, and these have a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 15. And the range for cluster and composite scores is 30 to 170. So that's a mighty big range, which will definitely help you differentiate ID that would be considered mild to moderate. Now, there are 7 broad factors that are commonly agreed as important in CHC structure of human cognitive abilities. These I'm showing you here in figure 2.5, and together with G at the apex of the hierarchy. Now, each of these broad factors has a number of contributing first order narrow factors, which I'm not showing you here in order to simplify this figure. 3 of the broad factors are more highly related to G than others, and these factors are all represented in the DOS core subtest. Now, you'll notice that these are shown here with broader lines. Let me see if I can show you here. Right here, you see these with broader lines, connecting them to G and include GC, GF, and GV. Now, GC is measured by the verbal ability cluster. GF is measured by the nonverbal reasoning cluster. GV is measured by the spatial ability cluster, GSM is measured by the Working Memory Diagnostic Cluster. GLR is measured by the Recall of Objects subtest. GS is measured by the Processing Speed Cluster, and then GA is measured by the Phonological Processing Diagnostic subtest. Now, the DAS Early Year Spanish Supplement is a cognitive assessment battery that is particularly useful when you're assessing children from monolingual Spanish-speaking homes. Now, this is the only cognitive measure for young children published by Pearson that is available in Spanish. Remember that the publication date is 2012, and it includes 6 core and 11 diagnostic subtests. Now, with the DAS2 Early Year Spanish Supplement, you can obtain a more accurate picture of Spanish-speaking children's cognitive strengths and needs by obviously assessing them in their primary language. This child-friendly instrument for ages 2-6 to 6-11 supplements the DAS2 Complete Kit to provide an in-depth analysis of learning abilities across a wide range of domains. Now, during the translation and adaptation of the DAS2 Early Year Spanish Supplement, professionals representing each of the following countries were involved to ensure that any cultural or language issues that might affect the assessment of a child from that specific culture were addressed. Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, El Salvador, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, Puerto Rico, Spain, and Venezuela. The DAS2 Early Year Spanish Supplement is one of the few measures, and I'll say this again, it's one of the few measures that includes a RAN task and a phonological processing task in Spanish. Remember that these are diagnostic subtests. On rapid naming, although the instructions and items are translated, responses can be accepted in either in English or in Spanish. And the reason for this is that it enables children to name colors and animals in the language in which they're more comfortable. Phonological processing is the knowledge of sound structure of the Spanish language and the ability to manipulate sound. Now, this subtest was adapted to accommodate for the Spanish language. It also has an audio file with correct pronunciation for scoring, and it is the only subtest that does not allow responses in English. Now, when a bilingual psychologist is unavailable, the interpreter's manual included with the DAS2 Spanish supplement provides information that is key to effectively collaborating with an interpreter to administer the battery. In addition to training suggestions, the administration manual includes the Spanish instructions that are going to need to be read by the interpreter so that the examiner is able to follow along during the administration. As always, of course, any departure from standardized administration procedures should be noted and described on the record form and considered when interpreting test results. Now, the DAS2 Spanish supplement is individually administered, and as I indicated earlier, it is designed for use with monolingual and bilingual Spanish-speaking children ages 2 years, 6 months through 6 years and 11 months, with out-of-level testing available for children 7 years through 8 years, 11 months. The DAS2 Spanish yields a composite score that reflects the overall conceptual and reasoning abilities of the child, often referred to as G. It also includes cluster scores that reflect more specific abilities and individual subtest scores that represent a range of diverse abilities. Now, the wide range of abilities measured enables examiners to obtain a reliable and valid profile of the Spanish-speaking child's strengths and weaknesses across a range of cognitive abilities. And this is what makes the test unique. Administration and scoring rules were adjusted to allow for English responses where appropriate to accommodate for differences in bilingual language acquisition. Now, the DAS2 Spanish supplement consists of 17 subtests. It has 6 core subtests and 11 diagnostic subtests. These core subtests are used, as I indicated earlier, to estimate the child's the general conceptual ability score, and to obtain the cluster scores. And then the diagnostic subtests do not contribute to the GCA, but measure aspects of memory, processing speed, and other abilities that are key to early school learning. And as I mentioned previously, it is one of the very few tasks that include a RAND task and a phonological processing subtest in Spanish. Now, because some of the subtests of the DOS are used as part of a diagnostic assessment of children who are deaf and hard of hearing, a special group study was conducted concurrently with the scale standardization to examine the clinical utility of the scale with children who communicate via ASL. Now, for the purposes of this study, 9 subtests were translated into ASL. These are listed here. The translation is modeled and captured also on videotape for learning purposes. And once again, this is one of the other features of the test that makes it unique. The results of the study provide strong evidence that the DOS-2 scores are useful in the assessment of children who are deaf or have hearing impairments with regard to the general conceptual ability, as well as nonverbal reasoning ability and spatial ability. Now, subtests can be administered out of level for children between the ages of 5-0 and 8-11, when warranted for the purposes of substitution or hypothesis testing. Now, occasionally, depending on the ability level of a child in this age range may be administered the entire battery out of age level. So let's say, for example, that you have a child who has limited ability and is 7 years and 2 months of age. This child can be administered the upper early years battery. Now, please refer to figure 2.3 in the DOS administration manual. This table depicts ability levels within an age for which the reliability of the subtest is relatively low, because that subtest is either too easy or too difficult for that particular child. So scores that fall within the shaded area are relatively inaccurate and should be interpreted with caution. So before using a subtest out of level, the examiner may want to consult the appropriate Section A normative table for the child's age. Now, the size of the shaded area will indicate the proportion of children of that age for whom the test has low reliability. And this information is going to help aid the examiner in deciding whether or not a subtest is appropriate for an individual child. Kind of looks like this. You will see at a level, and you'll see these labeled high and low. Now, the decision to administer one or more subtests at a level depends primarily on the examiner's need to generate or test hypotheses about the child's cognitive abilities and to test performance. The decision about whether or not to administer subtests at a level can be made during or after the administration of the age-appropriate battery. And I'll say that again. So the decision to administer something out of level can be made either during or after the administration of the age-appropriate battery, which obviously provides a flexible option for the examiner. Now, as I indicated earlier, the verbosity of the DOS-2 has been reduced in comparison to other test batteries, and obviously this enhances its usefulness for children with limited verbal abilities, such as children who exhibit language delays or children who may be on the spectrum. In order to obtain valid results whenever we're assessing, you as the examiner have to be confident that the child understands what they're being asked to do. So children should not receive low scores simply because they don't understand the instructions. When an item is failed, the examiner can provide teaching for the item. Throughout the DOS-2, an examiner will find plenty of teaching items, and these are included to ensure that the child understands the task that is being given. Now, in addition to these teaching options, the DOS-2 also includes 3 other methods into the administration procedures to facilitate a child's understanding of the instructions. And those are repeating or rephrasing the directions and items, demonstrating with samples, and questioning or encouraging more elaborate responses. All right, so now that I've told you a little bit about the DOS, let's pivot and talk about what's new with the DOS and U. Now, because the US population demographics, curriculum, educational practices have changed over time, the use of older normative samples obviously introduces systemic error into the diagnostic process and may negatively influence decision-making. For this reason, the DOS2 and U assay provides updated normative information for the DOS2 collected on present-day sample of children and adolescents ages 7 to 17-11. Examiners have to be familiar with DOS2 materials, including the DOS2 Administration and Scoring Manual and the DOS2 Introductory and Technical Manual. The DOS2 and U school age items and subtests are administered in the exact same order and under the same administration rules as those in the DOS2 school age battery. All pertinent information for content, structure, administration, scoring, and interpretation of the DOS2 applies to the DOS2 and U. Now, in the context of these best practice recommendations, the DOS2 and USA provide two analyses to aid in the identification of SLD. Of course, we have the traditional ability achievement discrepancy analysis and the pattern of strengths and weaknesses discrepancy analysis. Both of these models incorporate results of an achievement measure, in this case, the Y-4 or the KTA, and a cognitive ability measure, in this case, the DOS2 and USA. And you're going to find that in Table D of the NU manual, it provides ability achievement discrepancy analysis for use with the Y-4 or the KTA. Now, why do we want to have a normative update? Well, over the past decade, there's been a shift in demographic composition of the United States. The population is increasingly diverse in language, in race background, in economic and educational levels. As of 2022, the US Census reported that foreign-born population living in the US was 46 million, or roughly 14.2% of our entire population. Now, among the immigrant population, the number of individuals without US citizenship is approaching record high as well. These immigrants suffer unique challenges in their ability to secure assets that are fundamental to their acculturation, including legal domiciles, affordable healthcare, and stable income. These barriers are especially prevalent for immigrant children who experience higher rates of parental loss. They have greater psychological dysfunction, increased risk for mental health problems, and significant academic underperformance compared to US-born citizens. Now, language diversity in the US is also expanding. The number of US residents who speak a language other than English in their homes has tripled over the past 40 years. At schools, 1 in every 10 students receives services as an English learner, which now constitutes the fastest growing student group in kindergarten through grade 12 public education. And Spanish, of course, was the home language of 75% of these English learners. Now, in addition to capturing a more representative sample of children, research also indicates that older norms produce inflated scores and cognitive ability measures. And I'm referring to here as the Flynn effect, right? This is a consistent pattern of longitudinal change that occurs in the human cognitive ability over time. So in addition to the studies comparing the DOS2 and USA scores to scores on external measures, additional evidence of validity demonstrating test criteria and relationships is provided based on the results of special group studies. These special group studies provide evidence of clinical utility and specificity when using the DOS2 and USA to assess individuals with either intellectual giftedness or intellectual disability, and of the scale's clinical utility with children identified as having various other clinical conditions. Now, the comparison groups for the intellectually gifted, intellectual disability, and autism spectrum with language impairment special groups were derived from the DOS2 and USA normative sample, and then the remaining studies were collected during the DOS2 standardization, and the scores were updated. Now, validity is the extent to which a test accurately measures what it's supposed to measure. We have validity studies included as well. And this section addresses several fundamental issues, including the similarities and differences between the DOS2 and USA and other cognitive ability measures. The relations of the test with measures of other constructs, such as academic achievement, language, and memory, are also included as well. Now, page 36 of the DOS2 and U manual also includes validity studies. Studies were conducted with the DOS2 and USA and the following external measures in non-clinical samples: DOS2, WIAT-4, KBIT2 revised, PPVT5, EVT3, and RAML3. Data were also available from prior studies conducted for the original DOS2 standardization project with 3 other external measures, and those include the KTA3, the WISC-4, and the Woodcock-Johnson Test of Achievement 3rd edition. Now, here's a list of research studies that have been conducted with the DOS and CLD populations, as well as children who are on the spectrum. Remember that students that are identified as gifted tend to obtain higher cognitive ability composite scores in comparison to same-age peers. Verbal ability, typically though, is their graded strength. So working memory and processing speed performance tend to be higher than those of same-age peers, yet are considered to be relative weaknesses compared to higher order reasoning and verbal ability. For this reason, the DOS2 may be particularly useful when assessing students for gifted. Now I'd like to review some of the changes to the school record form for the DOS2 and U. You'll notice that the DOS2 and U manual reflects the updated CHC theory taxonomy. You also have ability achievement analysis. The page, this was removed from the record form, and the pattern construction alternative procedure was not renormed, and 2007 norms for ages 2-6 to 17-11 still remain in the manual. I'm going to show you what this record form looks like in the next slide. And then the critical values on the normative scores profile were updated. So this is one of the tables from the DOS2 and U record form. And as you can see here, the pattern construction subtest loads into the spatial, GCA, and special nonverbal composites. The pattern construction alternative procedure is not included here, which means that you can't use it interchangeably with the standard procedure to derive standard scores for the DOS2 and U. Now, the scoring CD for the DOS2 and U, which I think many of us would agree is a bit antiquated, has now been replaced with Q Global scoring and reporting. In addition, digital assets for the DOS2 and U to include manuals will be available under the resource library in Q Global. The normative update for the school age for the early years and the early year Spanish will be available for scoring in Q Global. And as I indicated earlier, you'll also have ability achievement discrepancy analysis for the WIAT-4 and KTA3. Now here's the calendar of events for the DOS2. Scoring will be available on Q Global on the 20th of May. If you purchased a kit, those will start shipping out the week of the 22nd of May. Right now, we're offering a offering a pre-publication discount on complete kits only. The discount will expire on the 31st of May. And then please know that the scoring CDs for the DOS will go out of print as of the 20th of May. So let's take a look at these options for pricing. Now, these included here in the red square, you'll notice that these are the pre-publication discount that is being currently offered with the kits. And as I indicated, expire on the 31st of May. And then you'll also notice that DOS customers receive a 65% discount and free shipping on kits. And of course, DOS kits are no exception. I've provided the kit pricing here for DOS customers in the second column. Now, if you're wondering what the early year Spanish supplement kits include, I've listed all the components of the kit here. So you can see it includes the Spanish Administration and Technical Manual, the Interpreter's Handbook, the Early Year Spanish Record Form, Stimulus Book 5, the Recall of Objects card, Phonological Processing, and training slides. And we also have options for scoring the DOS on Q Global. The pricing is as follows. A 1-year subscription, which is allocated to one user, is $50, and a 3-year subscription, which is allocated to one user, is $140. Score reports, which can be shared among staff, do not have to be allocated, are $2.60 each. Okay, so customers who have DALS license will have access to the digital manuals on Q Global as well as scoring. However, they have to purchase the stimulus books and the manipulatives. DALS Plus customers will also have access to the digital manuals and scoring on Q Global, but they will also receive free record forms, free response booklets, a 65% discount on kits, and of course, free shipping on those kits. All right, here's some other products for you to consider, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Erin now, who's going to demo Q Global for us. Hello, Erin.
Hello, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen and go ahead and take over and talk to everybody about what we're doing in Q Global. We're really excited about this. As Daniela mentioned earlier, this is another part of our update. We're excited to share this information with you. And I think a lot of our customers are really excited about it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in and talk to you about our demo today. I'm going to talk you through, when you're using Q Global, how you log in, the resource library materials that will be available to you, how you create a new examinee, how you assign a new assessment, how you create an administration, how you enter subtest scores, and how you create a report. For some of you that have already started using Q Global, this may seem familiar to you, but we want to just cover it for everyone that might have been previously scoring using the scoring assistant software on the CD. For our demo today, I am using a recording of a video that I recorded earlier in our test environment. We are working to finalize the product, and as mentioned, the release is coming up later this month, but we wanted to give you a preview of what the experience is going to be like on Q Global. So please keep that in mind, that this is a work in progress as we do the video here. For the demo today, I want to let you know that it is prior to our actual release at the time of the demo, so it will take place in our test environment. Since it is our test environment, you may see a few changes with the final release. I will also be entering an example examinee and random scores that do not represent an actual administration. So this demo will cover the login, the resource library materials, creating a new examinee, assigning a new assessment, creating an administration, entering subtest scores, and creating a report. When you get to Q Global, you will enter your username and password. Go ahead and click sign in. Once you log into Q Global, it will take you to the examinee page to start. I want to start off in the resource library, so I'm going to go to the top of my screen here and click on resource library. The resource library will contain resources that are available to you. This is often helpful to review before, during your first assignment of a new assessment. And within the resource library, you can select the product that you want to view. I'm going to go down and pick the DAS. I'm going to highlight the two folders in here, both the general and the restricted folder. I'll start off here with our general folder. The About Doc is a great resource with an overview of information for customers on using Q Global. It will also support customers that use export and provides an FAQ. We have audio files and sign language files available to support administration of the DAS, and we have sample reports available for your review. Within the restricted folder, this will be available for users that have purchased the DAS assessment if you have purchased the components within this folder. The Early Years Normative Data Tables Manual provides all the tables necessary for deriving norm reference scores, performing score comparisons, and evaluating score differences for the early years battery. There are 2 manuals specific to the early years Spanish supplement, the administration and technical manual containing general testing, detailed item directions, and scoring rules. The interpreter's handbook, which provides recommendations, training, and guidelines for administering and scoring the DAS2 early years Spanish supplement with an interpreter. There's a normative update school age manual that describes the development of the normative update for school age children and contains all the tables necessary to derive the norm reference scores, perform score comparisons, and evaluate score differences for the school age battery. If you're using the 2023 updated norms, please make sure you reference this DAS2 normative update school age manual. We also have the administration and scoring manual, which includes the general testing guidelines, item directions, and scoring rules for administration. The technical manual describes the theoretical approach and development for the DAS2, details of what the test measures, guidelines for interpretation, and discussion of test applications, fairness, and other topics. You may see another normative data tables manual if you purchased a version before this update. Please be aware that that file contains norms from 2007. With that, I'm going to go back to my home page on Q Global by clicking on the home link in the upper left. From here, I'm going to create a new examinee for anyone that might be a new user. You can also assign something to an existing examinee from this page, but for now, I'm going to click on New Examinee. I'm going to enter in my first, middle, and last name, select a gender and date of birth. And to create an examinee, that is all of the required information to get it created. From here, to assign an assessment, you click on the examinee, and it will load an examinee detail page. From here, you can assign the assessment. There are a couple of different ways to assign the assessment, but I'm going to go through clicking on Assign New Assessment. And from here, it will populate a full list. If you've marked items as your favorites, you can toggle to that tab. You can also search for assessments by name by clicking through here. What I typically do is type something in the search. If you know the name of the assessment, I think that's the easiest way, just to type in the search box, and it will fill in the assessments that are available to you. For the DAS2, you can choose between the early years form, which is also available in Spanish, or you can choose the school age, which has the normative update. I'm going to choose that one for today for our demonstration. Select the form and click on Assign. When you get to the administration page, it will allow you to select delivery options when available. In this case, you're always using a paper form with manual entry. The administration date, though, can be modified here. If you had maybe administered it last week and want to go back and pick the date that it was actually administered, that's important for record-keeping purposes. Go ahead and put that in there, and then go over here to the right and click on this Create Administration button. From here, it will take you to the assessment details. There are 3 tabs here. At this point in the administration settings, you can select your examiner, click Sample Examiner here, and then go on to your demographics a little further down on the page. All of this information is optional, but it would appear on your cover page of your report at a later stage, so it might be helpful to enter some of this information depending on what you like to have available to you. So I'm going to go ahead and put some information so you can see some of that appear when we generate a report. Then I'm going to go on to the next tab, which is the subtest. You want to have your paper record form ready when you go to this tab. I'm going to highlight that you can expand and collapse all the tabs over here. That can help you kind of navigate around. And from here, you're going to be entering your raw scores. You will select the item set that was administered and then type in a raw score into the raw score field. When you select your item set administered, when applicable, it will provide you with a raw score range. You may also see in some cases there are trial scores or tasks that you have to enter for depending on the part of the assessment that you're entering scores from. You'll want to just follow your record form for guidance on what needs to be entered there and go through and enter the rest of your scores for your assessment. I'm going to go through the rest of these really quickly just so that you get a sense of what it looks like. With your record form in hand, this is a pretty quick process, and you can just go through, select what you need, and enter that information. Just a couple more to go here. This is the example where there are tasks specific and it calculates the total raw score with you just put in the task scores. And once you've entered in all of those scores, you can go back up to the top of your page. From here, you can save your updates at any time. Or you can also go on to the next tab, which is what I'm going to do in this case. And on this tab, you can enter any observations that you have related to the assessment, anything that you may want to note and reference in the future. This is just helpful information for you to have. Once you have entered the information on all three tabs, you can proceed to reports. I'm going to go over on the right here and click on Proceed to Reports. That will load your report information page. From there, you'll be able to select the report that you are wishing to run. On that page, you will get to choose things like the report file type, the report options if you want to include the examinee name. If you are not including examinee name, I recommend having some sort of a numeric identifier in the system before running a report so you know whose report it is, and some other settings for the report related to confidence interval, statistical significance, base rates, that sort of thing. Once you've done that, you can click on Generate Report over here on the right, and that will have the report created. I'm going to stop the demo at this time, but we'll be sharing some screenshots of what that report looks like with you. All right, for the demo today, I want to let you know. So looking at the cover page of the report, again, if you've used Q Global before, this should seem pretty familiar. The cover page contains that demographic information that we entered and gives you information on the assessment and on who the assessment was for and other information like that. The next page that I'm going to show is just the first page of the report to give you an idea of what our reports look like for those of you that maybe are not as familiar with our reports on Q Global. There is a header available that will, again, repeat the report information and what form you're using, the date, and has the examinee name on it. And then you'll find tables of information that will include scores and profiles and things like that to help you understand the results of your assessment. I'm not going to go through the whole report today. We just wanted to give you kind of a sneak peek to get you familiar with what you should expect to see. And from there, I would like to open it up for questions. That was all the topics that we wanted to cover today. So I will stop sharing and open it up to some questions. For this portion of the webinar, I will be reading questions aloud to Dr. Maglione. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A section. We'll try to get through as many questions as we can, although I know we covered a lot of content today. So I'm going to go through what we can, and then we'll kind of go from there and see how many questions we can get through. So Dr. Maglione, my first question for you is the Spanish version something that needs to be purchased separately?
Yes, that is correct. The Spanish version is something that needs to be purchased separately. The cost for that is $901.60. It's called the Early Years Spanish Supplement.
Great, thank you so much. Do we need to purchase new record forms if we want to use the normative update?
So that's a great question, and I've seen that question asked quite a bit. And I guess the answer is it depends. You can use the old record forms if you're going to use Q Global for scoring. Please note that if you use the old record forms, you're not going to be able to hand score that, even if you have the new manual. So make sure that if you're going to use the old record form, that you purchase Q Global for scoring. And if you're going to hand score the test, then you definitely need to purchase the new record form.
Great, thank you. Can the early years and early years Spanish forms be scored on Q Global?
Correct. Everything will now be available on Q Global.
Great, thank you. Is there a plan to update the early years norms at this time?
So we are looking into that, and we will decide after, I guess, quite a bit of time, but right now we don't have any specific plans for that, no.
Great, thank you. There was another question that came in just recently that I wanted to address. It asked if we will provide updated record forms for people that would want to trade in old record forms. And I just want to have everyone keep in mind for your early years and your Spanish and earlier Spanish administrations, you can use your existing record forms. We do recommend that you purchase new record forms for the normative update, but there's no trade-in policy. You would just need to purchase those. Some customers are choosing to use their current record forms and are using those in the meantime, but we do recommend that you take a look at our slides in the webinar actually cover some of the differences, so go ahead and take a look at that. Specifically, it's page 9 in the handout that was attached in the chat. So for those of you that want to look at that, what those changes were to the record form, please feel free to check that out.
Yes, and I just want to add, Erin, that we do have a 90-day return policy. So if you did purchase record forms in the past 90 days, you can certainly contact customer support if you'd like to return those and purchase the new ones.
Great, thank you so much. I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions. Another question that's come in a couple of times, is this assessment available on Q Interactive? I
would be so happy if it was, but unfortunately I have to say that the answer is no, it is not currently available on Q Interactive.
Great, thank you so much. There was another question that came in about the 10% discount, and I'll go ahead and just clarify that for people. The current pricing that you'll see on our website, and hopefully someone can put that in the chat as we talk here. The current pricing on our website does reflect the 10% discount on complete kits. So if you're checking out the DAS on the Pearson website, you'll see that a complete kit is available for $13.72. I know that was in one of the slides as well. That does reflect the current 10% discount. So that will go up to the regular price after the end of the month. So if you are looking to replace your whole kit, you don't need to. You can simply purchase the normative update. But if you would like to replace your whole kit, that is available to you now with that discount. At the end of the month, that price for a complete kit will go up to $1,525. So definitely a great time to take advantage of that discount if you want to refresh your whole kit, get all the new STEM books, get all new manipulatives, all that sort of thing. If you want to take advantage of that, there's a discount to kind of incentivize our customers to consider that as an option and make the transition a little bit easier and a little bit more cost effective during this time. And again, that's available through the end of the month.
And I posted the pricing here, so you'll notice in the red square, you'll see the complete kit with 1-year Q Global subscription. This is the price with the pre-publication discount. And you'll also see the price for the complete kit. It's the same price, $1,372 with 50 cents. And this is the pre-publication discount. There is a question about how much is the early year Spanish supplement kit, and you'll see that it's $901 with 60 cents. For those of you who are DALS Plus subscribers, you'll notice that the price for you is only $315 with 56 cents. So there is a question about that as well. And then there are also questions about, does it cover the 7 Gs? Yes, we are covering the Gs.
Great, thank you. I know there was a couple of questions that came in about DALS, and we're almost out of time, but can you give customers that maybe haven't heard of DALS yet a quick update on what that program would do for them?
Most definitely. So DALS stands for Digital Assessment Library for Schools. So many school districts have the option of adopting DALS or DALS Plus. So a digital assessment library platform means that you have access to 2 of our digital platforms, which are Q Interactive and Q Global. So you have unlimited access to both of those platforms for unlimited users. So it's a very affordable way for districts to outfit all of their support personnel without having additional fees each year as new tests are released.
Great, thank you so much. I know there was another question that came in about what the difference is between DALS and DALS Plus, and that probably will be our last question we can do.
Okay, so the difference, DALS Plus is an add-on. You can only buy DALS Plus if you have DALS. And what DALS Plus allows you to do is to purchase any test kit included in DALS or DALS Plus at a 65% discount. It also includes free shipping. Technically speaking, anything that is in DALS Plus is not included on Q Interactive. So it's not considered to be a digital test. So something like the KBC, something like the DOS, something like the KBIT 2 revised would be included as part of the DALS Plus portfolio. And as a DALS Plus member, in addition to the 65% discount and free shipping, you would also get free record forms and response booklets for those measures included in DALS Plus. If you have questions about DALS, I recommend that you reach out to your Pearson assessment representative. I'm sure they'd be happy to explain to you all the nuances of DALS and the Plus. If you're with the state of New York, then you have me. So feel free to give me a call and chat with me.
Great, and I just put the link in there for anybody that is interested or has specific questions. I know there's been a few other questions that have come in related specifically to pricing. So I put the link in the webinar chat, so feel free to grab that. That will direct you to your local assessment representative. So feel free to check that out and reach out directly to your assessment representative with more detailed questions, and they'd be more than happy to help. And with that, I think that's all that we have to cover. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to share our product update with you. We hope that you're as excited about these changes as we are. We're really excited to have such great participation today and to have such great questions coming in. So thank you again for your time. Thank you, Dr. Maglione, for sharing your expertise and guidance with us. It's always greatly appreciated.
Of course. Thank you, everyone, for attending and for your interest. It's a pleasure being with you this afternoon.
Wonderful. Thank you. Everyone have a great day. Bye-bye.